Welcome to Born Again to Live. I'm Eric Miller.
And I'm Amy.
And we invite you to walk along
with us
as we learn what it truly means
to be born again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Thanks to Dusty Landaker for that really cool music there. I hope everybody listens to the lyrics of the little jingle we have. I just want to show my appreciation to Dusty for the fact that he did that for us, and he wrote that just for this podcast.
Original audio. I love it. I love it so much. I have, for one, Eric, I have enjoyed listening to this podcast. I get up every morning and anxiously await, because I know they drop the midnight or whatever. And there's usually, there's several days between when we recorded them and when you listen to them. So when I listen to them in the morning, it's like, it's all anew again. But I did want to, I haven't told you about this yet, but I did want to tell you that the day that we were talking about the God having a plan, and we read the verse from Jeremiah, right? Well, when I was listening to that podcast, it was just like listening to somebody else. Like, it didn't even connect at that point who was speaking. And I don't even know if it was you or me at the time. But again, this is what we talk about, God's like living, breathing word. That word about how he knows the desires of our hearts and he plans our future and he knows what he has in store for us. In that moment that I'm listening to these people on a podcast talking about it, I heard God's voice just be like, just hang in there, girl. Cause I've been struggling with some things, and that has been my constant prayer. Like, God, give me that dream, give me that desire of my heart. I've been struggling with this so much. And yeah, I just heard God be like, I know what I know you're waiting on something, and I've got it going on. Or as you say, it's cooking. He's cooking, right? And so it's just I got such comfort in listening to my own podcast, but it wasn't our voices. It was God's truth, right? Through his scripture, through his word, that was definitely coming out. And so I just needed that little reassurance that he still knows what I'm going through, and he's gonna get me there.
Well, I too am a faithful listener of this podcast, and it's kind of surreal for me to hear us talking on a podcast. And you pull up Apple. Mm-hmm. You pull up Apple Music, and it's go to my library, and there's ours. And I'm like, that's crazy. I'm next to my Billy Graham, all these other crazy podcast people, and I'm like, that's me. That's it. I can't believe God did this.
Right? That's just little old me.
That's just little old me with a terrible voice now.
So if you hated your voice before, how are you feeling about it now that you can hardly hear it and you're a little rough there with some sinusitis?
I feel like it's a little rougher today.
Yeah.
Having one ear not be able to hear, I'm loving it today. Again, like I said, God has a plan. And there's been a lot of times where I didn't know what his plan was going to be in life. And one of the times was 2 years ago when he said, Eric, you're going to do a podcast. And I'm like, no. And I believe at the time I'd only told a couple people, but I looked up the podcast equipment, and it was going to cost roughly $200 just for microphones and a mixer and those little things. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, God, if you want me to do this, you provide the money.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go out and buy it. I want you to give it to me. And I even challenged him to the point of make it a random stranger that I haven't told about the podcast.
Oh.
And he never actually did.
Okay.
But 2 years later, I was in the ministry school is really the kicker on this whole thing, because he told me also I was going to do ministry school. And I was like, no, I don't really want to. And then I started looking into it, and I'm like, they're 3-4 years of my life and thousands of dollars. And I'm like, God, I can't do it. And so I had a friend who actually sent me a link to to this Zoom call about this new ministry school. And I was like, yeah, dismissed. And then she came to my store where I work, and she said, listen, you've got to look into this. It's a really good thing. And she told me all about it. And I'm like, all right, I'll look into it. So I did. I did some research, and I was like, man, that sounds really cool. I don't have the time or the money. I said, maybe next year.
Yeah.
And so it got to a day I was actually speaking at a youth rally, and Rob Reynolds again was there. And my buddy Rob's there, and I was like, what about this ministry school thing? Have you been looking at it? He said, yeah, today's the deadline. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you got to sign up by today. I said, I'm not sure I want to do it. And he goes, well, even if you don't, you got to sign up, and then you can decide later. So go home and sign up. And so I was like, all right, I'll sign up.
One.
So I went home and I signed up, and I used Rob as a reference and a couple other people, and everything went through. And then the next day was our Big Blue supporters picnic.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down with Steve Shook, our CEO or whatever he is, great man. And I said, Steve, I got this thing in front of me, and I don't know what to do with it. And he said, well, what's your fear? And I said, time and money. And he goes, okay, I understand. And then I talked to our then executive director, and I said the same thing. I said, I just don't think it's right for me right now. I just wanted people to know that it's there and pray for me. And he said, okay, well, what's your fear? And I'm like, time and money.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, okay, well, I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday of the next week, I get an email from Big Blue that says, hey, we've decided as a board you're going to pay for your education.
Nice.
So he took away one of
You didn't even ask.
I didn't even ask. I just put it out there that was a fear I had.
Yeah. All right.
God took away my fear, and I looked at it, and I just said, God, I'll take care of the other part. I'll find time to do your work.
Yeah. Carve it out.
So fast forward a couple months into the program, we have an in-person, this is all online schooling, and through the Pneuma Ministerial Association. But if anybody out there wants to go through a really cool organization, it's that.
Spell it. Pneuma?
Pneuma. I can't spell it.
We'll look it up and get back to you on that one.
When I first saw it, I thought it was pneumonia.
I was going to say, does it start with a P?
Yeah.
It does start with a P. Okay.
All right. Pneuma Ministerial Association. We'll get all the information. I'll link the actual website in the comments or in the show notes. But anyways, we had to go to an in-person orientation, which was like 2 or 3 weeks into the semester. Because it was late coming together and everything. Anyways, I had to go to Jesse, West Virginia, which, if anybody knows where Jesse, West Virginia is, it's a middle of nowhere. I ride with Rob. We go down because Rob Reynolds ends up in the same.
Love that guy.
So we go down there, and during that weekend is when the guy who runs the place, Jay Morgan, again, another incredible man. If I could model my life after somebody, it'd be him and Rob together.
Yeah.
But Jay put the thought in my brain of nobody tells them, how will they know? And then born again for what? And those were the two thoughts that I came away that weekend with, and which, ironically, when I told him about this podcast, because I don't even remember saying that.
Huh.
I'm like, that's the most profound thing I had heard that whole weekend, and he didn't remember it.
Wow.
So that tells you it was God.
Yeah, it was.
So that's why I started the podcast. I was so heavy that I had to do it.
And then just all the things came together. Like, I love how you mentioned that you'd mentioned to Dusty you needed a jingle. And I know, like, we always worry, especially when broadcasting and publishing things, like, you don't want to steal people's stuff. And there's a million Christian songs out there that we'd love to use, but I don't even know we could without
the
permission. I don't either. Yeah. So
I had 2 people in mind for the project of writing a song or a jingle. And one that works with us at Big Blue was Chris Montgomery.
Yeah.
And I was dead set that I was just going to ask Chris because I like Chris's voice. And I was like, all right, Chris, I'm going to get him to do this. And I'm sitting in church, and Dusty is my worship leader.
Mm-hmm.
And God says, have him do it. And I was like, but he's busy and he's doing jobs. And I started rationalizing, like, Dusty needs a job. He doesn't have time to worry about this. He's got a band and worship leader. And I'm like, oh, it'll be all right, And finally, I just said, all right, I'm going to send him a message. So I sent him a message and just said, I need a jingle.
Yeah.
God told me to ask you. So, yeah, he did. And he did it. Well, it took like 3 weeks because he was waiting on God to speak to him.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and I think Chris, your other option, I feel like he's been fixing like 75 cars in this same time. So I feel like he wouldn't have had time to probably do that. But no, Dusty, that was an amazing job. Like, you nailed it. So, but yeah, guys, when God puts a plan on your heart, he does not abandon you with just this vague dream. He moves mountains, for this to happen. And I just love how, Eric, you're like talking about just everything God says. You are meeting it with resistance. You have like rationale, right? Like, God did not make us just dumb dumb sheep and followers of his calling. Like, he gave us thought process. So it's natural to say, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't think I'm the right person, but when God puts it on our heart and he's got a plan for us, like he's gonna make it happen. So, he gave you had your rationale and he's like, yeah, no, I'm going to take care of that one.
Well,
so,
and with the podcast, I still had the same hesitation of money.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it cost a good bit of money to do something like this to start out. And the app that we used to do all this editing and all that stuff, which I had to learn, it cost us I don't really remember how many $100, but
yeah,
it's like there's amount of money here, and then there's equipment and all of this stuff. Well, my gift showed up.
Yeah.
Later, my gift showed up, and it was paid for me. So
that's right. So those concerns about time and money have kind of left the building, and I know originally. Trying to think when you called me one day after Big Blue, and I have a long drive, so I'm still driving, and you're like, Amy, I think you're the person to do the podcast with. I'm like,
So, listeners, I don't know if people understand. God shows you visions and dreams.
Yeah.
And he wants to show you these things. And it may not be while you're sleeping. And that night, I just distinctly remember we were at Big Blue together. And I don't even remember if it was, we do our crossover at Big Blue, and I joke with Amy, she's my news and weather and traffic report before I speak. And it was one of those nights. She had got up there, and we joked, and we laughed, and then I did the crossover, and she interjected to have this conversation in with it. And God, I had one of those, blackout, I'm seeing nothing other than me and Amy talking on a podcast in my brain in the midst of this conversation. I'm like, yep, she's the one. And that's it. That's who you're taking.
Oh my gosh, that's so well. And so you were like, Amy, I think you're supposed to do the podcast with me. And I was like, that's interesting. And I'm like, well, let's just sit on this one for a while. And I think I said yes, or I kind of moved forward, Eric, because I knew that this was your dream. And I'm like, I mentioned several times before, hospitality is a little bit of what I was born again to do, but it's also just that encourager, right? I feel like I'm a natural encourager, and I'm like, okay, I will say yes for now because I want to encourage Eric on this dream, and I want to get it started. I also like to put things in motion. I am a behind the scenes logistic person. So I'm like, all right, we're going to get Eric to the starting line and a few laps around the arena, right? That's my job here. And because I also had my reservations, and I guess here's the funny thing. I know time and money was your concern, and we had just talked about this on our hot beverage break. Eric's doing tea. I, of course, am still doing coffee. But during our beverage break, I was saying how I am so I compartmentalize my time, and I hoard my time like people do their money. Nothing is more valuable to me than time. And so money doesn't even factor into this equation. It was all about time. Do I have the time? Oh my gosh, one more thing. And this podcast this is a daily dose. This is not 5 episodes a year here. So I knew this was a huge commitment. And yet I'm seeing God faithfully follow through. A lot of things have been slowly but steadily getting taken off my plate. And it has opened up. And I think also, much like you, Eric, I've just, all right, God showed me this is what he wants me doing. So now I have to just kind of carve out that little bit of time. And it's not a big commitment. It's just what am I wasting time on that I just don't need to do anymore? Or just do a little bit less of, my jigsaw puzzle. So, an afternoon every so often, I can do this. And so, yeah, God just made it all come together.
Yeah, it's amazing how his plans work perfectly. We just stand in the way sometimes. But
we do.
So, listeners, I thought that wasn't kind of where we were going to go with this episode or whatever, but it is to tell you that God has a plan for you, and that even when you doubt that plan, it's still his plan.
Yeah.
And so there's been times where, even in the midst of doing this podcast, where I was struggling with editing at the beginning because I've never edited podcast or produced. And I now have that label, but really not that bad. So I've gotten really quick at it and really adjusted to it. So the time factor has been curved to where each episode doesn't take me 2.5 hours like the first one did.
Yeah, those first couple ones, like we kept stopping and starting, and like for you listeners, like thank you for getting through episodes like 1 through 3 or 4 where we just had no idea what we were doing. And now I think pretty much we roll the mic and just keep going. So it's gotten, I think, easier for both of us and for Eric's editing. So thanks for sticking with us.
And we're real people, so we make mess ups and mistakes and pauses, and it happens. Like, that's what we do.
Yeah, but it's a conversation. Like, I want it to sound like a conversation. I don't think people, they don't want to be preached at. They want to be involved. And so, guys, the best way you can be part of this conversation is leaving some comments.
Yep.
Comments, questions, anything like that. We would love to hear from you.
Yep. Again, and it's like we're sitting at a table recording, and I feel like I want you being there with us. I want you at the table having that conversation going, oh, I've gotten that feeling too in life.
Yeah.
So if that's how this makes you feel, that's what it's supposed to feel.
Yep. We want that connection with you guys for sure.
We want you all to be friends, not strangers. All right. Thank you. And again, this is just an idea of how God's plans for you can evolve and work.
Yeah. So let them work, guys. Let them cook.
Let him cook. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We really appreciate each and every one of you. I want to remind you that we are on all the major platforms for this podcast. So like, follow, share, subscribe, whatever it takes to get our numbers up there so that other people can find us and maybe be helped by it. If you enjoy it, share it with a friend. Thank you.